In this video, I'm going to show you how you can solo mine Bugna on your own home network using your Kaspa miners. A few people reached out to me and they asked if I was running any Bugna solo mining pools. And essentially, I told them that I don't have any public facing ones, but I have been running kind of my own solo stratum within my own network that I'm actually mining with KS0 Pros on. And so today I'm going to show you how to basically run this yourself on your home network. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be running the Bugna node, which is going to be your blockchain node. And then we're also going to be running a stratum bridge that will allow our ASICs or any GPUs, basically any stratum connection device, to mine to our own node. What that does is that eliminates any latency that you would have to mining pools because you're running everything on your own home network and you're actually submitting the block to the chain directly. You're not reliant on any external infrastructure, anything like that, and everything's within your home network. This is my preferred way to solo mine. And so first thing I want to do is I want to hop on over to mining pool stats, and you may be asking, why are we doing Bugna? Well, it's one of the easier coins to solo with lower end hardware. So for me, I do have a couple KSO Pros on it. If we take a look at the Kaspa hash rate, it's currently at around 766 petahash. Cedra is at 303 petahash, but Bugna is only at 3 petahash. So we have very good odds of getting some blocks. And in fact, if we pop open, this is actually my existing running stratum. You can see it's been up for just over a day, and we've hit 5 blocks. So far in the past day, I've hit 5 blocks using the Bugna network. And so that's obviously what we're targeting today. There's a couple other ones that we may target in the future. Gore, which is relatively dead, but there's still some pros to this that we might leverage in the future. And then obviously DMG only has 9 terahash on it. And BTM, again, only has 377 hash. This one's pretty much dead as well with no exchanges. So these are all the coins that we are able to mine with our Kaspa hardware. So we're going to do Bugna. And all you really need to do is hop on over to their GitHub, which is linked on Mining Pool Stats. If you scroll down, you will, actually on this one, they don't have a direct link to it, but if you do go to CoinGecko, and then scroll down on CoinGecko, over here on the left, they have source code, and they have a link to GitHub, and that's going to take you direct to the Bugna network GitHub. And in here, there's a daemon. This is the node software, and then there's a stratum bridge. And this is what's going to basically allow your miner to connect to the node. It's almost like a proxy service or a rerouting service where it's accepting specific connections. It's essentially managing the connections with the device and acting as a bridge back to the blockchain node. So this may sound complicated, but it's super simple to set up. We're now ready to attempt to get everything up and running on our Linux mini PC box. So the first thing we're going to do is just verify the OS version that we're running. OS-release. And we are running Ubuntu 20.04. This is a fresh install. So there's currently no files or anything here. And so our first step is going to be to install the necessary packages. So we're going to basically paste in this command and we're going to run this. This is just going to install curl, get what's your priority there, binutils, GCC, and MUSL. So we're going to go ahead and run that. And then once those are installed, we can check to see if we have Go installed. So if I do a Go version, we do not have Go. 1.13 is too old. That's what's in the package manager. So we're going to manually download the new version. And to do that, we can just do a wget on the package from go.dev. We're going to go ahead and download that. That's going to be version 1.23. A lot of the Kaspa forks require 1.20 or higher, so just keep that in mind. So 1.23 is the ideal one. And then we're just going to remove anything that's in user local go, just in case we do have an older version installed. And then we're going to untar that file into that folder that we just purged. And then we can go ahead and remove the archive file that we downloaded. Now, Go should be installed. So if we do /usr/local/go/bin/go and do a version, we can see we are indeed on 1.23. So perfect. We are now ready to get the node daemon up and running. So to do that, we're just going to do a git clone on the Bugna D repository. Go ahead and let this download those files. And then we'll do a cd into Bugna D folder. And then we're going to create a folder called build/bin. This is where we're going to output the compiled executables. And then we're going to run a mod download. So you're going to do user local go bin go mod download. This is going to download any of the packages that are defined in the repository config files. And then we're going to actually run the build code. So that's just going to be go build flags-o or build/bin, and we're going to be compiling everything that's in that CMD folder. And this should not take very long, so we're just going to let this run. And once it's done, the build/bin folder should contain our daemon executable file that we can run. Okay, it's done. So now if we do an ls on build/bin, we now have a control file, the daemon, the miner, a wallet, and then gen key pair. We don't really need to create a wallet on this system. We only need to run the daemon. So what I like to do is do a sudo mv. We're going to move the file. So it's going to be build/bin/Bugna D. And I'm going to move this to user local bin/Bugna D. And this way we can reference it without having to supply an absolute path if we choose to do so. And then what I like to do is I like to run that in a screen session. So we'll end up running this with screen-dm capital S. We can name this. I'm just going to name it Bugna. And then the command is just going to be Bugna D. And this is going to start it up without the UTXO param. But we want to go ahead and actually specify the UTXO param just in case we do want to monitor wallet balances with it. So that's just going to be --UTXO index. Now if we go ahead and hit enter, and then we do a screen-list, we can see we now have a Bugna screen session running that's detached. To attach to that, we can just do screen-r space Bugna. And it's the daemon's now started, the blockchain node is running, and it's going to start syncing all the files to this folder. So node is the username I'm logged in as. So it's putting it in the .bugnad folder. And we're just basically going to leave this run, let it sync the full blockchain. While it's doing that, we're going to set up the stratum bridge. So to detach from this session, we can just do Control A and then press D. That will detach it and keep it running. You can do a screen-list to make sure it's still running, which it is. And then we're going to do cd ... This will take us back up to our home folder. And now we're going to download the stratum bridge code. Do that. We're going to do a git clone on the stratum bridge for Bugna network. And then we're going to move into the stratum bridge folder. And then we can move into the CMD folder. And then inside that, you're going to say the folder is actually called Kaspa Bridge. This is because it's just the bridge itself is a fork of Kaspa Bridge. So just keep that in mind. We'll be handling the naming here in a minute to make things easier. And then we're going to run basically the build command again. So it's going to be user/local/go/bin/go, build, and a dot. That should build everything within this folder. So that's going to start by downloading the dependencies that it needs. And then it should compile it. And what we're going to end up with is we're actually going to end up with a app that is probably called, if we do an ls, it's called Kaspa Bridge. So we're going to rename this. But before we do that, what I like to do is I like to create a folder at user local bin called Bugna Bridge. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do sudo mkdir, create the folder. The reason we're doing a folder is there's a config file that needs to be placed in the same folder as the bridge. And if you decide that you want to run a Kaspa bridge and a Bugna bridge, or a Bugna bridge and a Sedra bridge, multiple Kaspa fork bridges, you're going to want separate folders for those because you basically need that same config file for each one, which is going to be kind of separate. So then we're going to do a sudo move. So it's going to be sudo mv Kaspa bridge, which is the name that it built it as. And we're going to move that into user local bin Bugna bridge /Bugna bridge. So that's going to be the folder that we created. And then we're going to move into that folder. And if we do an ls, you can see we now have Bugna bridge there. But we need to grab the config file. So we're going to go ahead and just do a sudo wget from Bugna network from that bridge to download the config file. Now that we have the config file here, if you do a sudo nano on config.yaml, in the event you want to change the port that it's listening on, or if you're running Bugna under a different non-standard port, you can change those here. By default, this will be set up exactly how you need it. You shouldn't need to modify this unless you want to change the port that you're running the stratum connection on. So for us, I'm going to leave it. Everything is default. And now we can run basically the same way that we ran the other file, the Bugna daemon. We're going to be running the Bugna bridge. But before we do that, I just want to check the sync status of the Bugna daemon. And we can see that it is syncing indeed. Do a Control-A/D. And then we're going to do a sudo screen on this. So to do this, it's a little bit different because the bridge has to be ran with elevated permissions in order to connect to the Bugna node. So we're going to do a sudo screen -dms. We're going to name it Bugna bridge. Then we're going to run bash with this command. So we're going to move into that Bugna bridge folder that we created because of the config file, and then run Bugna bridge. So if we do this, and now if we do a sudo screen -list, we can see we have a Bugna bridge running. So we can do sudo screen -r Bugna bridge. And here you can see that it tells us, so it's connected to the Bugna daemon, and it tells us it hasn't been fully synced yet. It's still syncing. So this isn't going to really allow clients to connect to it until it is fully synced up. So we're going to let that sync, but while that's happening, I'm going to show you how you can set this to run as a startup script, as an example. So there's a couple ways you can do this. What I like to do is I like to create some startup scripts in the etc folder. So to do that, we're just going to do a sudo nano /etc/ I'm just going to call this startup.sh. And then within this, we're basically going to take, we're going to create the shebang header that we need. And then we're going to create just the one-line command that we use to actually run the screen session for the daemon. So that is just going to be screen-dms Bugna. And then I'm going to do the full path to it. So it's going to be user local bin Bugna d --utxo index. Do Control X, Y, enter to save that. And then we're going to do a sudo chmod plus X on that file to make it an executable. And then we're going to do a crontab-e. It's going to be edit. And then within this, we're going to add a line that says reboot. And we're just going to run etc/startup.sh. Control X, Y, enter. It's going to tell you it installed a new cron tab. If we do crontab-l, we can see the list of cron tabs we have. And essentially what's going to happen now is anytime the system reboots on startup, it's going to run this script. So if we need any scripts to be executed on startup, we can put them in that startup script. And the other thing that we want to do is this only has the daemon running. So on reboot, we also need to get the bridge running on reboot. So we're going to kind of repeat the same steps, except this I'm going to call root startup. We're going to do a sudo nano on the root startup one. And it's basically going to be the same thing. So we're going to put the shebang header at the top. And then we're going to put the screen session command for the bridge in here. So again, it's going to be sudo screen-dms bugna bridge bash. And then it's going to move into the folder. Then it's going to launch it. Do Control X, Y, enter to save. And then we can chmod plus X this file. That'll make it an executable. Now to do the cron tab, what we want to do is, I'm going to go ahead and copy this file name real quick. We want to do a sudo cron tab-e. This is going to launch the cron tab editor for the root account, which is the elevated account we're going to be running that bridge under. And then we can go ahead and say 1 because we're going to edit it in nano. And then do @reboot. We're going to run the root startup. So do Control X, Y, enter. Now what's going to happen is if we do crontab-l, this will show us the regular user is going to launch that regular startup file. But if we do a sudo, that's going to run the elevated one. So now on reboot, it's going to run the daemon node, and it's also going to run the bridge. And it's going to use that bridge config file that we put in the folder earlier. So at this point, we're pretty much up and running. We're just waiting for the node to fully sync, which can take some time. So we're going to do screen-r/bugna. Let's go ahead and see how far along it is. You can see it's still syncing headers. We're about 14%. Do Control A-D. Let's go ahead and go into the Bugna bridge. You can see it's still waiting for it to sync. So we're going to let this thing sync. And then once it's fully synced, I will see you back and we will configure the KS0 Pro to connect to the pool. And you can kind of see how it's working in real time. The node is fully synced now. And if we take a look at the stratum bridge, you can see it's actually been up and running for around 27 minutes, 28 minutes. But it is fully synced. And right now there are no workers. But what we can see is basically every 10 seconds or so, it's giving us stats for the past 10 seconds. Obviously, there's no hash rate or anything yet. But we're basically at this point, we're ready to connect to it. So I'm going to open up my KS0 dashboard. So I've got 2 KS0s here. We're going to head on over to the mining settings section. And here you can see we've got our IP address. So we're going to switch this. I think it was 111. Let me double check that real quick. The IP is 111. So let's go ahead and we'll open that screen session back up. and we're going to put in stratum plus TCP : / 192.168.1.111 : 5555. This is the port that we told it to run in that config file. Then we're going to put our Bugna address in here. And that's pretty much it. There's no need for a password. We can go ahead and hit save here. And you can see as soon as we hit save, we got a stratum connection from there. And it's already hashing. It already has 19 accepted shares. This will keep in mind that these stats are 10-second intervals. So you might see wild swings. So you'll see 96 gigahash here. You might see it drop off. You might see it come back on, but here we can see KS0 Pro 1. So I'm going to go ahead and add the second one real quick. Let's do minor settings and just real quick 111. And scroll to the right, hit save. And our second one just connected in the middle of a job, so we'll give that a minute. And we can see we've got our KS0 Pro 1 and KS0 Pro 2 connected. And we'll just let this kind of ramp up here for a minute. But you are going to see those hash rates fluctuate. It might show 200 gigahash, it might show 2 terahash. Because it's basically a 10-second interval. And then once you find blocks, it will show the found block here. We can hop over to the Explorer here in a minute. So let's go ahead and actually do that now. Go ahead and pull up. So this is an example. You can see for this one, we've hit 10 blocks so far. So this started yesterday. This was on the other stratum I was running. So basically in the past day or so, we've hit 10 blocks. Each of those are just under 1,500 coins. Now, one thing that you might notice that happens occasionally is it's almost like the equivalent of an orphan block. So you get 2 blocks. If you notice, my transaction count's 13, even though my UTXO is only 10. That's because I had 3 duplicated blocks. That's what you're seeing here. The 6 hours ago, there were 2 there. 18 hours ago, there were 2 there. And one of these were duplicates here. So if we go into the blocks and take a look, what you might see happen is this block did not get accepted, but this one did get accepted. And if you look at the date timestamp, they are at the same exact time, pretty much. So the first one got accepted, the second one didn't. This is completely normal. This can happen when it's, especially if we're running 2 miners or 2 or more miners, they both find the block solution at the same time, and they both kind of try to send to the chain. If that happens, then you may end up with what is almost like the equivalent of an orphan block. So one of those got accepted, the first one. The second one got rejected. So blockchain's doing it still. It knows that second one is a duplicate. It's going to reject it. It does still show up in here in the transaction list, but there's no UTXO tied to it. So your wallet balance doesn't take into account those 3 duplicates. So nothing to be alarmed with there. Now we've got both ASICs pointed to the mining pool that we're running, or the stratum bridge in this case. We can see they both just connected. And you might notice that the hash rate isn't going to match the ASICs exactly like a standard mining pool would. And it's really just how the stratum bridge is trying to do the calculations of the effective hash rate. It's not going to be perfect. And so it's going to look like it's around half, but it's not. It's submitting tons of shares. You can actually see 420. This has only been up for a minute. It's already submitted almost 500 shares. This one's only been up for 45 seconds and has submitted almost 300 shares. So these are submitting shares, and you're going to get basically the full hash rate. And you can check that by just checking a profitability calculator. I wouldn't get hung up too much on this if you're seeing a lower hash rate than what your miner is. For me, I'm running 200 gigahash units, the KSO Pros. And so we're seeing like 107, 102 with the stratum bridge, but we're still getting tons of shares, and we will be getting tons of blocks as well. I have ran this, using this stratum for a couple days with a different pool or different server and getting plenty of blocks. In fact, I'm getting a couple more blocks in rewards per day than what is estimated on the profitability calculators. So overall, I'm profiting above those calculators with solo mining using everything on my local network. So that's all there is to getting it set up and running. It's been just over 24 hours and I've had both of the KS0s on the solo mining pool that we're running locally on our network. And you can see we've got the KS0 Pro 1 and KS0 Pro 2. And as I mentioned earlier, they will basically stay at like 100 gigahash even though they're really getting 200 gigahash. We can see we hit 7 blocks with one, 8 blocks with the other one, for a total of 15 blocks. So what we want to do is we want to hop on over, validate those, hit our wallet real quick. And if we take a look, let me just give this a refresh. We can see all of those rewards have been hitting the wallet to the tune of 15 blocks. And if we hop on over to what to mine, we're going to plug in 400 gigahash at 200 watts, hit calculate, and if we look at Bugna, the 24-hour estimated reward should have been around 17,764. So let's calculate what we actually got. I'm going to take the block reward here and copy this amount. You can see every block reward was the same exact amount. There were no extra fees or anything in any of the transactions. So this will be a pretty easy calculation to come up with. So we're going to go ahead and paste in that amount times 15. We ended up with 22,474 coins, where if we were pool mining, the average would have been around 17,764. So we profited essentially like an extra 5,000 coins here almost, just under that. And so that is several additional blocks. Each of those blocks is just under 1,500. So that's about 3 extra blocks compared to what we would have gotten on average if we pool mined. So you can see even though the hash rate is kind of under-reporting on the pool software we're in, the Stratum Bridge, just based on how it's doing the calculations, we got a substantial amount of rewards. And if we take those rewards, let's actually do that again. Times 15. So 22,474. Let's hop on over to CoinGecko. And we're going to take a look at what that would have been. So let's copy that amount. Paste that in over here. And that is around 57.6 cents at the current price. You can see that price is kind of dipping right now. But at 57 cents, that is pretty much the same as what Kaspa is making right now. So according to this calculator, we should have gotten around 45 cents of revenue, but we actually got closer to that 58 cents based on current price. So obviously substantially more than what the calculators are going to be showing, mainly because we're solo mining. We're getting a lot better luck. We're able to knock out a bunch of blocks. There's not a lot of hash rate on this network right now. We've got 2.8 petahash. And so we're able to stack a bunch of these coins. But that's it. Just wanted to show you guys how you can run your own solo mining pool for Bugna. Cedric Kaspa pretty much work the same way. You just gotta grab the code from those sites. If you need tutorials on those, let me know. I'd be more than happy to set up videos on those, but the steps are pretty much gonna be identical.